Welcome to The Intrazone, a show about the Microsoft 365 Intelligent Intranet. I'm Mark Cashman here with my co-host Chris, who can't wait to share the news about today's episode, McNulty.
Mark, I am dying to be able to talk about today's topic, something we've been working on for 2 years that we're finally revealing publicly for the first time here at Ignite. For the first time ever on the Intrazone, we can finally talk about Project Cortex.
Let us first ask the simple question. What is that?
So Project Cortex reflects Microsoft's mission to be able to reinvent content services, enterprise content management, in a way that takes advantage of the cloud and our investments in AI and allows you to create what we're calling your knowledge network. The knowledge network is very much the union between people and content and work processes to be able to bring together all of that to imbue every person in the organization with the opportunity to upskill themselves. When we talk to organizations about the challenges they're facing today, we hear an awful lot about the importance of knowledge as being the key way that they can maintain competitive advantage in this marketplace. One thing that had a lot of influence on how I talk about it is talking with Jared Spataro, one of our vice presidents here at Microsoft. Jared loves to just boil things down to being very brief and very clear. And he really hears from customers that they just think about this as knowledge. So certainly coming from Microsoft, all of these next generation waves around workplace intelligence, we're going to be describing them just as knowledge. And we think that that gets carried forward into that end result, which is the knowledge network, which is what unlocks the capacity that you have, the integrations you have, automatic organization and tagging, as well as being able to bring knowledge into the applications that you use every day. You know, Mark, I know you saw our news last month about our placement in the Gartner Content Services Platform Magic Quadrant.
Yeah, congratulations. That was nice to see. Up and to the right is always good.
Up and to the right, always where you want to be moved, and we're really pleased to get that recognition. We've been investing a ton in content services, content management, knowledge-aware applications. This is an effort that began nearly 2 years ago. And Naomi Moneypenny is leading a growing team with Adam Harmetz, building the product out. I've been working with them, with Ian Story, a number of people to help get the news out. When we think about what the mission is here, we recognize that organizations are putting ever more critical and ever larger pools of content into Microsoft 365. And there's just so much more that you can do once you start collecting all your information together. We've already seen the journey with teams about how can I start to stitch together collaboration and communication on top of the Office 365 services that organizations have already adopted. When we think about the mission for content services and knowledge, we hear a lot of pressures at the C-suite, at organizational levels about how do I make my workforce more efficient, better? How can they deliver more? The key answer to that is upskilling. We hear a lot about knowledge drain and how do I preserve and share and improve the quality of knowledge around my organization? How do I protect my information assets? How do I reach out and break down some of those silos? So when we think about this whole initiative, our mission very much has been how do we make it easier to bring more content into Office 365, bring content in that might live somewhere else? How do I use the fact that we're in the cloud to be able to apply AI to enrich my content by automatically tagging it and organizing it? And how do I combine it in new ways to be able to extend knowledge into the apps that are already part of everyone's everyday habit?
So the news is super exciting, Chris, and I have seen one way to look at it is content services on steroids. But I actually think it's more than just that. It's content services that isn't not just a platform API or something that we do on the back end that the service does. It's really something that people will benefit from. It'll help them get content in a more meaningful way with tagging and the awareness of what it is, all with less manual activity. People don't have to fill out forms and do lots of work that maybe they just don't do, even though it's a best practice. And as it transitions into that research tool or that way to find things that are hard to find, especially when it's auto-collected for you or presented to you in a way that's meaningful, I think it's now made for it to be easier to be consumed by actual people.
One of the best things to think about, and I know that you haven't yet been as steeped in this as I have for the last 2 years. But when we talk to customers about this, and we've been working in private preview and doing lots of research with those customers, it's one of the many reasons why I've been jetting around the world in the last few months. We hear over and over again that organizations want to help people discover information in the flow of their everyday work. And in most cases, all of the expertise you need to be smarter, to do more, to learn as you go, is there among the content and the people inside of your organization. With Microsoft Graph, we have a great way to start mapping out the interrelationship between people and content and collaboration. And with our new offering, we're able to help you create that knowledge network, being able to connect knowledge to people and people to knowledge, and also being able to integrate other capabilities, the kind of insights that you get from tools like Workplace Analytics, LinkedIn Learning, enriched with tools like Microsoft Stream and Yammer to be able to forge those communities. I think it's really exciting, and we can't wait to see what our customers are able to do with this. General availability will be coming up in the first half of next year. We're even more excited about what's coming beyond that, because Naomi and team have a rich backlog of information that we've gotten. It's going to be very interesting. On today's broadcast, we're going to be sitting down, or standing up in this case, with Adam Harmetz, who is the partner GPM over SharePoint Experiences and our new product, as well as Naomi Moneypenny, who's been the director of program management across all of this.
I will tell you, Chris, it's giving me tingles right down my Project Cortex spine. So I think we've reached that time, unless you've got anything else that we want to preempt before we bring in Naomi and Adam. But I think it's time to hear from our deep experts.
There's always time for one more World Series reference, isn't there? And my producer is telling me my time is up. So I'll take the cue, Lisa. Thank you.
And now it's time to hear more from Adam and Naomi.
So today, coming live from Microsoft Ignite, Mark and I are sitting down or standing up with Naomi and Adam. Welcome to the Intrazone.
Good to be here.
Thank you so much.
We'll start with Adam. Just give everybody a little bit of a background of who you are and how you got to this knowledge-crazy world today.
My name's Adam Harmetz. I'm a partner GPM. I help drive the team thinking about SharePoint experiences all up across many different parts of SharePoint, from portals to team sites. And then over the past couple years, as we've made more investments in the knowledge network and knowledge management.
Naomi, Chris and I used to know you as a peer in marketing. Now we know you as a peer in engineering. Give us that little, where were you and where are you now? And specifically, obviously, what you do with this new thing.
Well, I was previously working in product management for Microsoft Search, and that's where a lot of the folks will know me from a few years now. But now I've been a transition to leading a product team that's really centered on this knowledge in Microsoft 365. So I've had the privilege of really being able to start up effectively a whole new offering inside of the company and to be able to build on the great resources that we have inside of Microsoft 365.
One question before we dive in. On a scale of Windows NT to Windows 10, how excited are you to get to this point in time to be able to talk about this new project?
Windows 2020.
Very nice.
Yeah, we've been working on this for a long time, and it's super exciting to be able to share it more publicly. We've been sharing it with customers in a more private sense for a long, long time, but being able to tell the world about this it's a great week.
So some of the questions obviously are going to come from Chris in a real smart way because he is your marketer for this and been your cohort all along. What is this thing?
It's really a culmination across all of the work that we've been doing from Microsoft Research, across Azure, into the Power Platform, and then, of course, how we develop new end-user experiences within Microsoft 365. And the goal is really to put the knowledge that you need in the flow of the learning that you have every single day. And the goal is really to make that available across your entire organization or to the folks who at least need to know about it. And so the complicated thing for us here is that we have an amazing set of technologies across Microsoft, new technologies that lots of folks can benefit from. But of course, we want to make sure that end user experiences, when you're using them every day, are as simple and as seamless as possible. And so it's really hiding the complexity of amazing AI technologies, machine learning technologies, bringing new things to bear, and then making it integrated with the experiences that you have all the time. And the goal, of course, with all of this is to really think about how do we upskill you as an organization. You want to be able to learn from everyone that's going on across your company, all the projects that you're working on, the topics that you're working on, all of the expertise that we have inside of the organization, and how we really bring that to bear inside of the work that you do every day. But of course, we want to make sure that you also are learning from that. And so every piece of experiential learning, if you will, that you're doing is important to how you're contributing to your own expertise. And so we want to make sure you get value as an individual, value as your team, and then value as an organization, and really accumulating that knowledge and growing from it.
I think it's really impactful that we're doing this at this time. It's been really interesting to be on this journey. But Adam, I want to ask you a little bit about some of the background of this. And for the audience's benefit, the clever fiction here is that I don't know anything about what we're doing here, but obviously we've been on this journey for like 2 years. But I was wondering if you could walk the audience through the origins of this, why we're doing this, thinking back over the last year plus.
It's a fascinating story. I think the question of why is really sort of a why now, because this has been something the industry has talked about for a long while. Microsoft has invested in or talked about for a period of time. In fact, in the very first days of SharePoint, one of the first teams that created Tahoe and ended up creating SharePoint was called PKM, or Publishing and Knowledge Management. So it's not like this area of knowledge is this new thing. But you and I were working together back in it was January 2018 when we first sort of got together and said, hey, let's go think about what it would mean to create a new product within Microsoft 365, leveraging our strengths and content. And it was really interesting to talk to customers about this. While knowledge has always been a need, it seems to have been coming to a head in the past couple years. And we talk with customers, everything from people working on the line all the way up to the CEOs about this global skills shortage, about this overwhelming amount of information. And so it really started with this, like how it seems like there's this step function in the customer need for having a knowledge network that is addressing all these problems, everything from the gig economy to the overwhelming amount of information. And then I really do think it's sort of a lot about how our company as Microsoft has matured over the years that makes this time an awesome time for Microsoft to be providing this new product. Everything from the customer-driven nature that sort of got us to here today to, I think, as Satya has come in and have us taken a growth mindset and leveraging the work of others, really looking at doing awesome tech transfer from Microsoft research, bringing people like Naomi on board who have awesome experience at transforming industries and sniffing out what is the best technology to use. It just sort of was that excellent merger between Microsoft's culture has adapted to be able to make huge leaps in here, and we're hearing from customers like this is the thing to invest in if you're going to be sort of providing a deeper value in content collaboration.
I really think that's important for the audience to know. I mean, thinking back to early last year, when we, or in most cases me, flying around the country talking to some of the early customers, and we knew that we had opportunities to kind of round out our core content services story, but the themes around knowledge kept coming up over and over and over again. And once you integrate all of your content into the Microsoft 365 cloud, customers do want more. And I think that a whole bunch of stuff is coming together at the right time to help us start to address that question in ways we haven't been able to do it before.
It's interesting because when we started this journey, as you said, the first team I worked on at SharePoint was this ECM team, Enterprise Content Management, and we started this as, okay, this is the reboot of ECM, and it absolutely is. It absolutely is taking taxonomy forward, is actually talking about how you can have transactional content management, and here's a site template for where you want to be able to configure workflow and metadata and versioning controls all in one place so you can have structured information process. But as you said, customers really took us to say, that's good, that saves you sort of time and money in the short term, and this is something Naomi says, but in addition to saving time and money in the short term, what's going to be the transformative thing that moves my business into new ways? How can I outperform my competitors? And so I'm not looking just for incrementalism. I'm looking to address this huge problem I have with my global workforce.
One thing that in the last month that we've heard a lot from customers as we've been preparing them for these announcements and doing additional research is once we explain privately, this is Microsoft, we're doing this, and these are our core content values, that gives them confidence in us, and I think gives us the opportunity to take it up a level and say, we're going to solve a lot of core content issues and we want to do more. And we look at things like how we did in this year's Gartner Magic Quadrant. We're very happy at how we're doing as a content services platform. That news is coming out officially today, so we're not breaking anything here.
So let's get into, you've all been talking about customers, being customer-driven. Obviously, the tech is very customer-focused, where we would like our customers, what we would like them to be able to do next. But let's get into some of the scenarios. What are customers actually going to be able to do with this?
I think there's a few things that we can think about. The first off starts with really understanding how content comes into an organization and what we can do to drive business process efficiency there. So this could be everything from looking at proposal management. One of the large healthcare companies that we work with, they send out RFPs, as many large organizations do. They've got thousands of projects that are running at any one time. And each of those projects gets a lot of submittals for all of these proposals coming in, which means human time, right? It's a project manager has to read through all of those proposals that come back in. They have to go through a decisioning process. Then once they've actually selected a specific vendor, then they have to keep those milestones and deliverables tracked as part of all of this. And so couldn't we make this a process that's much more intensive from a knowledge perspective, but actually being able to gain that straight out of the information that's being provided? So we're really thinking about how do we help to take that project manager's expertise and how they analyze that particular proposal? How do we help extract the information that's important from it? And then how do we actually put that as part of the workflow that people use every day? And so we think it's an important piece of understanding that customer scenario is how do I capture the information that I need? Now, there are other ones like even just understanding things like receipts in a better way. So even in terms of Microsoft ourselves, even at one of our customers as well, it's a big scenario for them where they want to be able to audit through all of the receipts in the organization. And so they have very strict policies about what their contractors are doing as well as what their full-time employees are doing. And so then if we transition more onto thinking about how do we process forms within an organization, that's another big source of area for us. We've seen a lot of the customers that we're working with have a lot of incoming paper forms, right, just coming into their organization. And so we want to make sure that we're able to do that. And so as we process that information, it's an important piece to be able to say, how can I train for the forms that are important inside of my company? And then we're extending out to places like the Power Platform, using the AI Builder capability, and actually being able to marry those two things together. So you have the best of both the structured system and then the unstructured information.
And I think it also takes a lot of the burden off of people doing things manually. I know that's pretty straightforward and obvious, but it seems to be when you hear from a lot of customers, we have great forms. There's a lot of great technology to capture and put it and then structure it. Mm-hmm. But it also just takes a human actually filling in all fields, required or not.
That's right.
And if they're not filled in, required or not, obviously the nature of it being valuable isn't because it's not there at all. Mm-hmm. So you're taking a lot of that off of it. Exactly. That's what it sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're really looking at it from a solution perspective too, right? So that's the key here is like there's so much great technology inside of Microsoft, and we want to make sure that we're helping to bring all of that together and make it easy for the folks who actually own those business processes to help put in that automation. But while they're actually doing that, they're actually strengthening what they can do in terms of knowledge sharing across the organization and making that available more widely.
This is super key, this sort of solution focus, because I think people have been saying for years AI will solve the metadata problem. Metadata has always been super useful, but how do you get it captured and inputted? And painting AI with some sort of wand over everything. And Naomi and her team have sort of deeply understood the different types of problems and business cases and solutions that are needed in order to have the different types of AI captured, be it vision on images, forms, unstructured data, and having different solutions that are brought to bear in an understandable way, in a very solution-oriented way. I think it's sort of the real key to the step function in the power of metadata and its ability to be extracted.
I think also it takes us into some different areas. One of the customers that we've really been driven by that we talked about in the Modern Workplace keynote here is Mott MacDonald. They really embrace this notion of connected thinking. How do we, connect knowledge to people and people to knowledge? And they look at it initially from a perspective of the return on their investment in role shifting. Their average engineer touches 24 projects a year. They're on 4 or 5 at a time. They need to be able to rapidly get up to speed. And also, when they move on to the next one, not be burdened with having to keep their successors continuously engaged to ask questions. So they definitely can measure that, but they're thinking much further down the road. And the question they're trying to answer is, how do we deliver double the book of business in 5 years' time with substantially the same workforce? And they're looking for all the ways that we can help innovate with them. It's really, I think about this, Adam, it's really interesting to be able to engage customers like that. When you think back on the history of SharePoint, we always say the greatest community in tech that's out there. And the ways that we've been engaged with our MVPs in the community and customers, how does that inform the way that you've shaped some of those parts of this initiative?
You listed a couple of great examples, so did Naomi. I think we have a long history in SharePoint of being as customer-driven as possible. And I do think the cloud has unlocked that in new ways, where before on-prem, we certainly had an approach where we did betas and even preview programs, but then we had a lot of coding to do in-house, and then we sort of put out the final release. But now we can work with customers all the time. We can iterate, we can flight things, and it's really led to a sort of a totally deeper engagement. And we've been doing that for quite a while in the portals and collaboration space with rather mature markets. It's been fun to work with Naomi over the past year to do that in what essentially is a V1 incubation within this larger organization, a line extension to a business, whatever you want to call it. That has been a little bit less, of course, about broad scale and more about working deeply with customers, you name and on a first name basis as well as their company name, because customers at the end of the day are people, not the company logos. And doing that in a deeper, richer way. Everything from even before we were flighting code to customers, bringing them on site and doing paper prototypes and working with them incredibly deeply. That's been sort of embedded into the culture of Naomi's team from day one. I think it's generated a lot of excitement among those customers and certainly internally at Microsoft, and I'm hoping at this conference this week as well.
Naomi, earlier Adam said one of your skills, or I'd like to use your word, upskill. You're upskilling me right now on what this is. But he mentioned that you're good at finding the right tech to bring together to create something new. Can you give us a sense of what you brought together and some of the parts and pieces?
We think about it, there's a number of different technologies that we were able to go harvest, if you will, from Microsoft Research, as well as looking at across our partners again with Azure as well. So we thought it was really important when we're thinking through the kinds of technologies to understand deeply those customer scenarios first. And every sort of round table we did, we went to lots of conferences, we talked to lots of different customers, whether they were Microsoft customers or not, right? We talked to those folks. And then we went very deeply into those scenarios, and helping understand those scenarios was really driving around how do we help knowledge mine basically inside of your company. So how do we go through all the content you already have and then figure out what's relevant there? And then we went off on a sort of an expedition to go find those technologies inside of Microsoft. And so it was great to meet up with the folks from Microsoft Research in Cambridge, for example, where one of the key technologies that we're using for mining is coming from there. And that's a great technology that really works on systematic inference. And it really looks at understanding facts, if you will, that are extracted from documents and sort of building a coalition of facts, if you will, and then using that kind of as a magnet to really help attract kind of the things that are important through this kind of mine of data that you have. And so that's one of the sets of technologies there. On top of that, we're actually looking at neural network technologies too, from a different part of the organization, where we're actually looking at how those map together different topical areas so you can understand the context. Because how are you ever going to discover and learn from other parts of the organization if you can't have some help in identifying what's sort of recent or relevant in that neighborhood? And so we want to make sure that we're creating that knowledge map. And so we're using a different set of technologies for that and bringing those things together. But of course, we have this awesome thing called the Microsoft Graph, right, which is my love, I would say, in some respects, of all the work that I have done. It really is understanding that breadth and depth of signals, which is really intrinsic and different about what Microsoft is able to do. And so we've done those pieces. And then on the capture side, what's been really exciting for us has been, again, to work with a different part of Microsoft Research, which is now moved into Azure land. And they are really focused on machine teaching. And this is a kind of an essential thing. So I've been working in machine learning for the last 15 years, and I understand there's lots of limitations. You can crunch a whole bunch of big data, you can do a lot of data science models, you can do a lot of work there. But there's all this quintessential thing that we as humans do that is really, really hard to do with machine learning. And there is a whole set of problems, usually around knowledge work, around understanding unstructured content and understanding what makes a professional and expertise area and how you can actually help to teach that. And so machine teaching for me is really dramatic. I'm expecting a step change. It's a simple, well, the things we're delivering right now is a sort of simple foray into that. But we're really excited about the possibilities of what happens when you help to teach a machine the same way as you teach a person. And you're basically helping to encode in the knowledge of people or a team of people into a model instead of just content. So usually we just encode knowledge as content. It's in conversations, it's in documents, that kind of stuff. What happens when you actually encode it into an AI model, and then that model can be built on by multiple people across the company?
You know, and on this initiative, that's one of my favorite things just to consider is that whole interplay between machine-driven intelligence and human-driven intelligence. One of the things that I know here we have to consider an awful lot is authority management. How do I determine what's authoritative? How do I determine when a person says it versus how do I expose why the system thinks something is authoritative that it's learned on its own.
I like the idea of being able to validate. The machines are certainly already smart. They can detect a lot of things at speed. But as you start to program them, or now this word of the concept of teaching, you can say, yes, that's right. No, that's wrong. Yes, that's right. That's right. That's right. And then at some point, the algorithm takes over and is mostly right all the time. I think that element of taking people from AI is this ethereal thing that may or may not work, or it will over time get better, and inject that human nature to be able to say, no, I'm helping make it better. And actually, probably specifically to this, it's the business that's running it for their business that makes it more contextually important for their business in what is right or wrong. Because right or wrong might be different for different customers. Does that sound close?
Because I think, there was an article I remember about 15 years ago about one of the very first high-frequency trading operations, algorithmic trading based out of New Mexico. And trust in the human interplay with the system is super important when you have one of these transformative technologies. I remember early on they figured out, gosh, our returns on this new black box trading system are half what the models predicted they should be. And they went and did some more research and they figured, well, the traders didn't want to hand over everything, so they were hedging their bets and they were only placing half the volume of trades the system told them to place because they didn't understand how it got there. And I think, there's some clues that we give in our topic pages, for example, where we say not just here's what this topic means, but here's why we know this, to give people those comfort factors, I think, to be able to adopt these transformative technologies, I hope.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's just such an optimistic version of the future of technology and people working together. It's not technology replacing humanity. It's technology making people more productive. That's been part of our play from day one. Like, this is about how to increase productivity in the world's largest productivity cloud. And it also helps us bake security and compliance right into the bet, which is super critical. That was also very clear from customers from day one when we talked to them. We're talking a lot about this play and this trust in technology and also how security and compliance can be layered into all this with this mix of authoritative tagging and the algorithms. And that's incredibly important as well.
We're talking a little bit about the tech behind and also in front, because a lot of this surfaces throughout the Office suite of applications and so forth. SharePoint obviously is central to this. So how do you think about this? We've heard customers asking questions like, is this the new SharePoint?
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing started a few years ago as what would we do if we wanted to create a new product extending the content collaboration of Microsoft 365. And the content collaboration of Microsoft 365 is SharePoint, right? There is no knowledge network without SharePoint. It is the basics of where data is stored. Obviously, the SharePoint authoring canvas provides the wiki-like simplicity that people need in order to be able to curate all these. The knowledge network drafts behind the security and compliance promise that SharePoint makes. But it extends it in new ways. And it fundamentally, as you were just saying, puts itself in all the important Microsoft 365 experiences people expect to be able to find topics and knowledge, whether that be email, chat conversations, why you're authoring a document, or whatever we create in the future, because it is fundamentally this shared experience, shared service, and shared data that can go across all of those.
I think that also gives you the foundation, and I'm going to bet that this is part of your building blocks when building a solution, that if everything that Adam just said is true, which of course when Adam says it is now.
95% of the time. I mean,
95. Okay, so 5% plus or minus. But it also gives us that confidence that it is also following the same rules of security and compliance. So can you talk a little bit about that when you think of, all these things that people are doing manually, training, teaching, trusting AI, but also inferring a lot of the human element? What does it do from the security element when you thought about the solution?
Sure. So it's a great question. So again, I go back to the graph and thinking about all of the permissions and security and compliance protection that we have built in there. So the fundamental here, for example, in the knowledge mining area is really about understanding the permissions and the ACLs effectively that we have on those documents already. So the very first thing is to understand that we are only mining the things that you would ever be able to see and have permissions to already. And so whenever we're generating a list of resources as kind of our candidates, if you will, for mining, we're really taking that information from the graph. And so that is already part of everything that you do in Microsoft 365. And so we're taking that as a fundamental construct. I think it's really also important to understand a little bit more about how you take that model and then make it approachable to the rest of the organization. So in the case of a topic card, for example, we're only ever going to suggest it to the folks who have access to the fundamental resources. And it's only the act of then human curation, basically, that allows that to say, okay, okay, do I want to take this topic and make it something that everybody in the organization can see? And so what we're trying to use here is that great blend between AI doing the heavy lifting, which is what computers should be doing, right? They should be doing the manual, laborious, boring stuff, right? And they should be doing that work. And then we leave that sort of extra layer of human intelligence and human understanding to really help us to say, yes, this is something I want to curate, I want to share broadly across my organization, and then really think about how I'm actually applying who can see what inside of an organization. And so it's an important piece of everything that we've done and designed in all of these experiences. And that goes from the models and how they're trained and how that information is being accessed, and then all the way through to how those are being experienced in the flow of everyday work.
So, Naomi, we all love the tech. We're deeply steeped in the technology and how we're building models and how we're doing integration. But the vast majority of our customers in Microsoft 365 are using other surfaces and may not see all of those things below the waterline. What should the everyday information worker expect to see in their organizations?
This is a great question, Chris. So we really want to put that knowledge in the flow of work, as we mentioned. So the goal is not to be massively intrusive in the experiences that you already know and love every day, but instead to look at things like acronyms, right? How many times have you gotten an email inside of your organization? You're like an acronym that's in there and you have no idea what this means. And then you have to go off and research it or you have to ask somebody. Well, instead, we're going to highlight that acronym for you automatically. And the beautiful little topic card will drop down from that acronym and it'll let you see some of the people and the resources that are available is there. And if you're clicking through onto that topic card, then you'll see a topic page, which has been effectively AI mined for you and has wiki-like capabilities in there that allow you to see descriptions and people and resources.
So just to kind of clarify that, so those initial experiences are distributed into things like Outlook, into things like Teams and other Office applications.
That's right. Across Microsoft 365 is really where we're looking at. We'll start with some few experiences first, obviously within SharePoint and Outlook and others, but we'll gradually get all the way through all of the applications we have in Microsoft 365.
But then we're driving up to some new experiences that we haven't had an application surface. We've had pieces of the application surface for, but can you just expand on that a little bit, what they'll see there?
Sure. So there's other pieces there. I would say if you think about the pervasiveness we have right now of the people card, so you see that live people card, you've seen it through search, you've seen it through Outlook, you've seen it when you're in Teams. It's a great model for how we're actually taking the idea of topic cards and topic pages and making them pervasive across the suite. Nobody worries anymore where did that page come from or anything. You just expect it to be there, right? And so that's the experience we really want to go to. And then, of course, inside of SharePoint, we want to think about other ways to access some of this AI capabilities. So thinking about how we are able to use some of our capabilities with Power Automate to understand how to build workflows that incorporate AI models, and then how we're actually accessing machine teaching as well easily through there too.
So Naomi, I'm going to ask you an unplanned question because as hearing you talk about some of the technologies there, I'd love to get your take on what is One Microsoft and how does it inform our decisions about building and integrating technologies from across the company?
So I think it's really understanding how we as Microsoft work as a knowledge network to supply extra differentiated solutions to our customers. And so we really want to bring the best of what Microsoft has to offer to each of our customers in Microsoft 365. And so when we think about that, it's really how we work together in order to fulfill the customer scenario and to deliver a solution on that particular promise. And so all of the things that we do across Microsoft, the promise of trust, the promise of ethical AI, the promise of how we deal with your information, how your information always belongs to you and the way that we process it, and all the way through from data center controls all the way through to the experiences that you have every day with Office, making sure that those are actually fulfilled on and are done in a trustworthy and compliant way.
You know, Satya talked this morning about really being a people-centric company and Microsoft 365 being people-centric experiences. And so this is a way of bringing all these technologies of Microsoft together in a very people or topic-centric way and not in a product-centric way or not in an app-centric way. And it really sort of unlocks this new level of this One Microsoft integration because we're not working, you know, together to make product X better per se. We're working together to make this knowledge network, this something that spans all of our apps, experiences, and products in one way. It's been fun to see Naomi basically create a coalition of the willing within Microsoft to make this come alive, no matter where the experiences need to be.
So, Chris, I have a question for you. And of course, Adam, Naomi, jump in, but it's kind of a what comes next. We've talked a lot about it, the tech. Obviously, we were just announcing it, so there's a lot more to come in the future from, use and iteration and new tech. But Chris, what can people expect to find next after Ignite? Where can they go to learn more and all that kind of stuff?
So if you go online to aka.ms/Project Cortex, you will get our Resource Center. One of the best ways to learn more is to come online to the Microsoft Tech community, where we pull together the best of all of the keynotes at Ignite, demos, videos, and more. It's also an opportunity for our customers and partners alike to get engaged with us on the private preview program that we have underway right now. Now, I want to be fair, it's a limited number of opportunities, but we love and encourage our customers to reach out to us if they have an interest in joining the program, so we can figure out the best way to give them a good supported experience moving forward.
What do you want people to think about as they're here at Ignite and then leaving and going home? What are last thoughts you want them to leave with?
I would love for them to be thinking about what scenarios would be really useful inside of their organization to be able to help implement this, and to really think about what areas of their company, for example, if they were getting started with, and maybe what they would like mined inside of their organization, to think about what sites are authoritative, what sources of content would be authoritative. And that's a really great place to sort of think about how I could start implementing that inside of an organization. We'd also love some guidance as they go through this to think about what business processes are really pressing for them and where they could see the application of this great technology, whether it's this out-of-the-box understanding, whether it's things like forms processing and what's important in your organization. And then finally, with machine teaching, which we think unlocks a whole range of new scenarios for knowledge working, how does that really apply and what could they use it for inside of their organizations?
Very nice. Adam, any last thoughts to share?
No, I think Naomi said it right. Like, think about the scenarios you might use this for. I think one way you could look for scenarios is to look at some of your legacy on-prem systems you haven't had a chance to modernize in the cloud. The Knowledge Network opens up a bunch of new scenarios for doing that. And so now's the time to start thinking about those, planning for the migration to Microsoft 365 for those systems.
Great thoughts all to walk away with and certainly think a lot more about. But now we just want to take the time to say thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
You know, Mark, once upon a time, when Microsoft held conferences, one of the things that everyone would do there is collect swag. You would collect white papers and books and T-shirts and stickers and all these sorts of things. But over time, we've really broadened the reach of an event like Ignite, so people can engage online. They can engage with us in things like the podcast, where we're sharing Ignite news today. But I'm really excited that we can now bring all of that swag goodness here to listeners of the IntraZone. If you're enjoying this podcast, as recorded at Ignite 2019 here in Orlando, our organizers are giving you, yes, you, a chance to win one of 10 Surface earbuds. I think 10 pairs of Surface earbuds, because winning one earbud might not be what you want, but one of 10 Surface earbuds just for listening to this recording, featuring an ultra-comfortable design, intuitive touch and voice controls, screen-free access to Office 365, immersive sound for music and calls, and all-day battery. The new Surface earbuds help you stay on top of your day.
To enter, you must be 18 years of age or older. If Microsoft Surface earbuds are not certified for distribution in your legal country of residence, you will be provided with an alternate prize of equal or greater value. I hope greater. For full terms and conditions, visit aka.ms/msignite/podcast sweepstakes. Entries close at 11:59 p.m., no later Pacific time, on December 15th, 2019.
Oh, no one's going to give me them for my birthday then. My birthday 2 days before.
I think you're going to have to enter the sweepstakes, Chris.
Up next on the IntraZone, frequently asked questions. These are questions that we've heard about from our customers, from our partners, that we'd love to share our answers to those here on the IntraZone. Naomi, let's start with you. What's a question you've been hearing lately that you'd like to share with the audience?
Thanks so much, Chris. Really around Microsoft Search and how it works with the Knowledge Network. So I want to make clear that these are things that work very closely together. In fact, on our team, we have a lot of the capabilities of Microsoft Search within SharePoint and OneDrive. And so all the great stuff that we're doing for Search, like custom connectors, for example, out to other external systems, all of that information will be incorporated as part of your Knowledge Network and is something that can be mined. We're also doing a lot of work in terms of search extensibility. So if you've ever thought about creating some of these destinations, maybe you're going to include some of the new web parts. You can also think about how you're extending search, maybe using the patent practices web parts or even custom queries that go off to Azure, being able to bring all of those things together to create the destination and the business process needs that you have inside of your organization.
Thanks, Naomi. Adam, how about you? What's a question that you've been getting lately?
I get asked a lot, basically, dude, what's up with metadata? Is it real? Is it worth investing in? And the answer is absolutely yes. First off, Microsoft has a bunch to announce this week in terms of new investments in metadata, including the managed metadata service, 5x scale increase of the service itself, new taxonomy admin UI, including analytics, content types, enterprise content types, always improving the UX and doclibs and lists for working with all types of metadata, including managed metadata, the highlighted content web part getting support for taxonomy, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on, and we continue to listen to customers for investments there. So this is really a huge time in the history of metadata. It is worth thinking about an information architecture. It is worth thinking about projects that need and leverage a great schema, how you can use that in search results, how you can use that in Power Automate to create workflows, how you can use that just to be able to slice and dice and find the data you need. It's a good time to be in the metadata business.
Good. Glad you're in that business. So the question I got a lot here was off the back end of the announcement that we made around 100 gigabytes for file uploads. And it's really an age-old question, but it certainly crops up from time to time when we make new announcements around what are the limits of SharePoint in Microsoft 365. And the question is usually around, is it still limiting, or can you describe what you guys are doing next? How are you going to address storage? So big announcement. Congratulations to you and the team for the new 100 gig file upload. And just for clarity there, that applies to OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, anywhere you upload files. But the real nature of it is the team has been always ahead of actual customer use. So we had Zach Rosenfield on earlier to talk about at the data center level and then what SharePoint looks like in the data center. And he's pretty confident and bullish in saying, pretty much primarily, maybe back to your 95% rule, that we're ahead of the game in terms of real customer use. But sometimes it's still the perception. So we've increased the site collection limit per tenant up to 2 million. That was up from 500,000. And we've also always had really large site collection limits, very different from on-premises. Each site collection can support up to 25 terabytes. And there's a full list, and we'll put a link in the show notes to all the limits. But really, it is that focus of being ahead of actual customer use and certainly being mindful not to block, to provide a lot of storage out of the gate and fewer limitations based on actual use. So that's my long-winded answer to say, yes, bring your content to the knowledge network in Microsoft 365. Chris, what's your FAQ this week?
One question I've been getting a ton here at Ignite, and I've been getting from our preview customers and our partners, is where do I go for more information? I want to experience this today. I know there's a preview program. I know there's a release coming next year, but I really need to see what's coming today. So if you go online to aka.ms/Project Cortex, you will get our resource center, which is everything that we've shared publicly. It will include videos from all of the Ignite keynotes. It includes demos that you can run on your own, as well as videos and other articles that you can use to help understand the importance of knowledge and how Project Cortex will let you slipstream this into your institutional consciousness.
That was an amazing FAQ, and I can only imagine through my Project Cortex what that page is going to look like. Excellent FAQs from all. Thank you very much. Time to close out this episode.
Thanks.
Thank you. Take care.
So, Mark, it's time to update our audience with events going on. It seems like it's impossible to imagine ever going to another event after Microsoft Ignite, but it is possible.
It is possible. With Ignite, the big event, and now in our rearview mirror, we have Ignite the Tour. So if you are unable to attend Ignite in Orlando, now is your chance to reap all the benefits of Ignite that is now being brought to you in a city near you. It is the same technical training led by Microsoft experts and your personal community, a lot of MVPs. In the SharePoint-related tech space, keep a lookout for the content collaboration, communication, and engagement in the intelligent workspace learning path. It's a mouthful, but it actually encapsulates 4 sessions. They're each 45 minutes. The first one focuses on content collaboration with SharePoint and OneDrive. The second one is all about organizing and engaging people throughout with SharePoint, Yammer, and Microsoft Stream. Then there's a specific focus in the third session all around the intelligent intranet, rounding it off with the session number 4, Harness Collective Knowledge, focused on Microsoft Search and Intelligent Content Services. So find the city nearest you. We'll include a link in the show notes, and you can follow all the action on Twitter with hashtag MSIgniteTheTour.
Another way to get connected with technical training, SharePoint Saturdays. They're an exceptional opportunity for users and for IT to learn from and engage with their local community. And despite their name, they cover the breadth of Office 365 and M365 content, information on Teams and Power Apps and more. Also, one of the best things about them is they're free. Free.
Oh, free.
But for you, half price. You can find lots of SharePoint Saturday events at spsevents.org. There are dozens happening around the world every year. A couple upcoming ones, November 16th, SPS Ahmedabad at Ganpat University City Office, SPS Leicester at the Leicester Racecourse in the UK, and SPS Twin Cities, one of the biggest ones, at Normandale Community College. All of those coming up on the 16th.
On November 23rd, there is SPS Lisbon at the Microsoft Portugal office. And then following week, on November 30th, there are two, SPS Bangalore at the Microsoft office in Bangalore and SPS Munich at the Microsoft German headquarters. And on that one, we want to call out that there are some special guests from Microsoft, Dan Holm, Director of Product Marketing, and Omar Shaheen, Partner Director of Program Management, who will be providing the keynote there live, SPS Munich.
Crossing the Atlantic, coming up in early December in Prague, of the Czech Republic, the European SharePoint Conference. This is a multi-day event that spans content beyond just SharePoint, just like SharePoint Saturdays. We're covering Azure, we're covering Power Platform, and the breadth of Office 365 and Microsoft Teams. There'll be 5 keynotes with Jeff Teeper, Scott Hanselman, and more. 4 days of content, 150 great sessions at all levels, and a couple from me. You can learn more at SharePointEurope.com and, of course, on Twitter at EuropeanSP.
As the end of the year comes, if between December 2nd and the 5th you didn't find yourself at the European SharePoint Conference because you weren't on that side of the water, December 9th through the 13th is SP Fest Chicago. The Microsoft keynote is being given by Naomi Moneypenny, our friend and Chris's close peer. She's the Director of Content Services and Insights. This is going to be scattered with tons of Microsoft and MVP speakers. It's a 3-day conference with 2 additional workshop days. That's basically 130 plus sessions, 25 workshops, and of course, networking galore. So if you're looking for an excuse to get to Chicago or you're in the area, visit sharepointfest.com/Chicago and follow the action on @SharePointFest if you're eating it all up on Twitter.
And that won't be the end. As we look into 2020, there'll be even more events coming up. So if you have an event that you'd like us to feature on the IntraZone, why not write to us and we'll help share the news.
Thank you to our guests, Adam Harmetz and Naomi Moneypenny.
Check out our show page to links of everything we talked about today, especially the Resource Center, where you can learn more about our new product, as well as sign up to join the private preview. You can get all that information and more by going to aka.ms/the-intrazone.
Send us your questions or feedback for the SharePoint engineering or product teams. You can email us at theintrazone@microsoft.com or on Twitter @SharePoint, @mcashman, and @cmcnulty2000.
Tell all your friends and colleagues about the show and share that SharePoint love. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If it happens to be in a topic card, more the merrier. If you like the show, please write a review. If you're not a regular reviewer of the show, please consider. Thank you.
Thanks again for listening. We are your hosts, Mark Cashman and Chris McNulty. You've been listening to The IntraZone, a show about knowledge everywhere in the Microsoft 365 intelligent intranet.